Hi everyone, welcome back to those people that have been here before. Hello and welcome to new people that might have stumbled upon this video. I'm Memo and I talk about my houseplants essentially. So what I normally do is I'll try to put 2 or 3 videos up a week, and they're all centered around my kind of obsession, shall we say, of houseplants. If you do like what you see in these videos as a new YouTube creator, it really does help if you give it a like down below and subscribe as well. If you want to hit the notification bell as well, and you'll be notified every time I bring out videos. As I said, I will usually try to bring out videos 2 or 3 times a week, and they will all be themed around content such as houseplants and what I do to care for my houseplants, because I've seen that there's not a lot of videos on YouTube necessarily for some of these more unique plants and how to take care of them. So I thought I'd at least give you some of my experiences and some of my tips and tricks essentially. So the plant that I'm going to be talking about today is the Hoya Javanica, or I think it's a subspecies of the Hoya Multiflora as well. And one of the common names for the Hoya Multiflora is the shooting star Hoya. And if I bring this slightly closer to the camera, you can see the blooms on there, and you can probably guess as to why it's called the shooting star Hoya. So let's talk a bit more about morphology with this plant. The leaves are nothing special necessarily. They're actually quite thin for a Hoya. Normally Hoya have got quite succulent leaves, which means that they can go for a long time without watering. Another thing to kind of be aware of is, I don't know if you can see some of that moisture on the plant is actually not water. It is nectar that drips from the blooms, and not all Hoya blooms will drip. Some do, some don't. This is definitely one of the ones that does drip nectar quite a bit, so just bear that in mind, especially in the summer months when there might be kind of ants and things around. It's kind of a bit of a sugary syrup that will drip down. Just keep that in mind essentially. As I said, because it's a slightly thinner leafed Hoya as well, so obviously you might be able to see I've got it in a cache pod, but it's still in its nursery pot, and I will try to bring it closer and hopefully you might be able to see the soil. It's still in the original grower's media. Normally I would have it in a lighter area soil mix, but I don't want to mess with it too much. And you can see that the roots as well are quite thin. I've also just noticed that this has got a couple of pests on it, and let's talk about pests actually with this one. I've not had a lot of pest pressures with this. With most pests, definitely hasn't really struggled with spider mites. It hasn't really struggled with thrips, thankfully, because anybody that has had problems with thrips in their plant collection, it can be quite disturbing because it takes a very long time to get that sorted, but hopefully it doesn't struggle with this. Something that this does struggle with on occasion, and a lot of Hoya do generally, is mealybugs, and that's what I've just spotted now. I just spotted a very small mealybug on there that I need to deal with after this video. But again, that's relatively easy to take care of if you can actually, and I know we're in the middle of another COVID spike potentially, so it might be difficult to get some rubbing alcohol, so about 70% rubbing alcohol, and just spray it directly onto the plant. Use a little Q-tip, wipe it away, you're done essentially. I know I was having a conversation the other day with one of my other plant friends on Instagram, and they were gonna spray down a plant that had mealybugs, and they bought 95%. So I think surgical spirit. Be very cautious on how you use that on some of your more sensitive plants. I had something similar, and I doused a couple of plants, and I think they were actually succulents, which you would assume would be a bit hardier than the average leafy plant, and it caused a lot of problem on those plants as well. So if you can get 70% rubbing alcohol, do that instead of surgical spirit, because you might cause some problems to your plants if you go that high of an alcohol level, at least in my experience. This might be different from you, and if you have had different experiences, drop it in the comments down below and let's have a conversation. Talking about this plant's watering needs. So because it's not a thicker leafed Hoya, you need to water it a bit more frequently. So I'm watering this every 4 to 5 days, which I know is sacrilegious for like a lot of Hoya growers, but as I said, the leaves are much thinner on this, so it tends to need a bit more watering. In terms of light requirements, at least what I'm doing with this plant, and what I'm doing with literally every single one of my Hoyas, is I have them in a south facing window. They love to get as much light as possible. And again, I will caveat this and say I'm based in the UK. For a large part of the year, it's quite grey. So I don't know if you're living in a more sunny, warmer climate where the sun beats down every day on those south-facing windows. You might not want to put it there, it might burn. But at least in my situation, south-facing window is perfect for these plants. They get as much light as they possibly can. And I find that helps them not only grow a lot faster for all of my Hoyas, but also bloom more readily. And that's something else that we can talk about in terms of blooms. You can see there's a few more blooms that are coming on this plant. I've also left the peduncles on. So this is where, for those that don't know, a peduncle is where the blooms originally were. And sometimes you can get that to rebloom for a lot of the Hoyas. With this one, I don't know. I've not had a peduncle. This one looks like it's going to rebloom soon, but I've not had a peduncle rebloom. I've had a lot of peduncles drop on their own, and then it will readily produce more peduncles and more blooms from a different area, essentially. So that's been my experience with this one as well. In terms of humidity, I've got it in my plant room, so it's got relatively high humidity, but I think this is probably going to be one of the ones that will do okay outside of high humidity levels. So definitely give it a try. And I think that's pretty much all I can say about this plant. As normal, if you've got any comments and you're growing something similar to this or the Javanica specifically, drop it in the comments down below. Let's have a conversation. If you're thinking about getting one of these, again, put a comment down below. Let's have a conversation. And if there's anything else you want to know, just let me know. In the meantime, thank you again for watching. Thanks for the people that have come back. And hopefully the people that are here for the first time, I hope you've enjoyed and you'll come back for more. And yeah, have a good rest of your day. Thanks.